We're starting the meeting. Good evening. This is the Rutland Town Planning Commission, and this is March 31st of 2022. Let's start the meeting with a pledge of allegiance. United States of America, and to the republic
which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First item, approval of the agenda.
Motion to, oh, go ahead.
Motion to approve,
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Howard. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, there's no one no one in the room and no one remote for public comment. We'll skip over new business unless anyone has any additions. Last minute, anything from the administrative assistant?
Nothing new.
Okay, down to old business. We are going to be able to do something with the energy survey, it looks like, because there's a new energy committee of the select board, and the committee is Mary Ashcroft. And she's going to be joining us, but not until 7:15 tonight. So I'll be moving things around a little bit here in old business. So let's start with the construction or the building notification ordinance. Anything from the committee?
Nothing new, nothing.
Nothing new.
And do you folks still want to be a committee? Maybe when Andy gets back into town? Is that the
It
plan?
work better. And I should be at the next meeting.
Okay. In the meantime, I ran across this Bennington construction ordinance and it's old. It's 30 years old, but it has some simple language in there, especially about enforcement, which would be nice if we could do that, if it was just like the administrative assistant or someone selected by the select board. We'll have to check statute and see if something has changed in that regard, if they want something a little more in depth. But I thought that there might be some things in that ordinance that might help us. I mean, it's mostly about water and sewer, but maybe the organization of it. And, I was just thinking the whole thing is in pretty plain language. So it doesn't get into too much legalese. So I thought that might be helpful to us. What were your thoughts?
For the overall document is like, that's set up for a city, as I see it. I mean, that thing was just, it went on and on about sidewalks and all sorts of stuff. I mean, you can see where if we were in a city, you need to do everything very precisely. We're far from that. So I mean, the overall general document, because we don't have water and sewer anyways to speak of that nature. Any water or sewer project that we have, an engineering firm would come in and they would provide this, the requirements and everything that would comply with this, standards that have to be out there. And this was pretty rigid. This here for the town of Brattleboro, they had to have, they have a staff of people, obviously. And
Yeah.
everybody's got a pretty busy job.
Yeah. Yeah.
That thing. It's
The enforcement definitely seems to be there is building standards out there that, the Vermont Energy Code is by state statute supposed to be followed. And a lot of people don't do that, but how do you enforce that? Even if we were to say it needs to follow that, which is the law already in the state of Vermont, but how do you enforce it? And that's the problem. The state has a problem, much less us.
Right, right. That they don't have the people to
Yeah,
enforce it.
exactly. So the only time it ever catches anybody is when it's a house is conveyed to someone else. Then if you haven't followed that energy plan, it can create an issue. But I think it commonly gets waived. Like if somebody really wants the house, they're more than willing to sell.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is going to be helpful, the Bennington example or not, but I just thought I'd share it. I'll keep looking around and see if I can find some other stuff.
And our goal again overall is to just basically have people let us know they're doing it. Is that what the goal is?
That was the
Overall, let us
primary
know.
goal, I believe. Andy, you want to chime in?
Well, that is, I believe, the entire goal is really to let the listers know what's going on. We really don't have any enforcement arm other than that. So it's just a matter of making sure that what's being built shows up on the tax rolls so that everybody gets taxed fairly.
And that there is the building permit, but not everyone necessarily would come in and get one of those, correct?
It's
Well,
voluntary.
that's where we need some enforcement, I think, to make it known that there will be penalties if you don't file that notice.
So one of the things you may want to consider is enforcement of the building permit.
I would think so, and I would think that would strictly be the purview of the select board. You know, all we can do is make a recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
Barb,
Yes, Norm.
one thing that struck me in Bennington, it is surprisingly for such an old ordinance, very clearly organized and articulated. And, it might be a model we can follow if nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that
Like-
caught me most reading that is that it's so geared towards water and sewer. It was
Yes.
hard to. I mean, I
That was
like
the
that it
bulk
was
of it.
fairly easy to follow for somebody like me that doesn't really read a lot of that. It seemed to be clear to understand, but it was so geared towards water and sewer primarily, and sidewalks and things like that, infrastructure that we just don't have, that it was hard to hang in there with it.
Don't have a
My
downtown.
sound went off. May I finish?
Yes.
One thing that caught my attention there and has kind of been on my mind a while is entrance onto town roads from private driveways, and making sure the private driveways are wide enough for fire trucks to get up safely. And I think that is a legitimate concern of the planning commission and the town. And that if we can work something like that into the whatever building permit scheme we come up with, I think would be a valuable contribution.
Dana?
Well, one idea is maybe to incorporate the sidewalks and driveways ordinance, I think we call it, that we have now currently. Maybe put that in this new one, maybe combine them and include what Norm is talking about, making sure the language is there. There is some language in that regard about, emergency access. But I'm not sure how specific it is.
Well, I remember when Chief Chaffee came in to talk about it, and somehow I hadn't thought about it very much over the years, and it just struck me as something that we should revisit, and it bears close scrutiny and close attention, because it's safety of our people. both the people in the houses and the people in the fire trucks. And
The
that
only,
was
the only,
something-
the enforcement thing still kind of comes full circle, because I think when he was in here discussing that, I don't think that ever went anywhere. And he had legitimate concerns that just kind of stalled, didn't they? Do you remember that, Howard? It just kind of like,
It didn't go anyplace now.
so, that comes all back to the enforcement of that even.
You know, at least all curb cuts need to get the approval from the highway department. They need to get that approval. So I mean, it's there that they need to make the approve or disapprove. And we have the opportunity because that we have an approval process, but just make sure that it's done properly.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's the main thing that they just can't stick a driveway in without an approval.
If we could,
So who is, just a second, who is doing that work now? With the Walt is? Okay.
Yeah, that was brought up 2 weeks ago at the board meeting, and they said that that's his purview at the moment. Driveway installation permit does have a set of standards attached to it, and they're B-Trans standards basically. So there is a set of standards attached to that. So once the person gives provisional approval for where the location is, they're expected to meet the standards, and then we go back and final approval, and that's if it's final and says, well, they built stone walls that, the driveway is only 7 feet wide, like that's not okay. Like you gotta change that. So, there is the initial approval where the location is going to be, and then any culverts, things like that. But then there is a set of standards that are attached that they're supposed to follow.
We just got to enforce them. I mean, we have a policy to follow. It just needs to be.
So all driveway access permits are recorded in the land records. So if there's a driveway that is a question, in theory, you should be able to go back to the land records and find the permit and find to see if there's any issues when it was installed.
And have you heard of anybody like being asked anything like this needs to be wider? You heard about?
Not specifically, no.
No.
But I don't know if it's ever been an issue where they've gotten a permit and then changed it or something like that. So
Norm?
two comments, if I may. Excuse me. One is in all the years I searched title in Rutland town, I never saw a driveway permit. Anybody of the paralegals that did it, I never saw one in the report. Secondly, it may make some sense in the ordinance that Andy and others will be working on, Howard and Jerry, to at least cross-reference it so people can't come back and say, we didn't know. I was not aware of the ordinance. And I guess my reaction from the years I did, I don't know how many closings in Rutland town. I never saw it. So my conclusion is it's honored more in breach than in observance, but I could be wrong.
I believe there's a separate-
I've had two homes in Rutland town, and I do not recall anything in my deeds or in my title that referred to driveway permits, access permits, whatever you want to call them.
Pretty
It's
sure
nothing to
that,
do-
pretty sure Byron has been doing these, over the past few years.
Oh, yeah.
But has it been over like the past few years?
For as long as I know, yes.
I'm just thinking that maybe that's perhaps why Norm hasn't seen it. I mean, it may be something that's relatively new that it was being at least.
At least it's being enforced now.
What I
Right.
gathered, there's
Yeah,
there's like a
I don't,
Just a minute, Norm, just a minute.
When I gathered, there's a separate book in the vault just for the driveway permits.
Anything in it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We just did one the other night, so.
Mm.
What we talked about. So that one is a case where the developer came and applied for the permit after the house was occupied. So that's a different problem,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Norm?
my sense is we shouldn't take up any more time doing it. Just something for the committee to, take a look at and see if we can, if it can, or it feels it should do something in regard to it. I was not aware of that separate book. But like Jerry says, it may only be 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. But it's just worth looking at and seeing if it's something we want to deal with or needs more attention than we're giving it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Does the committee need any further guidance from us at this point, or the rest of the group at this point?
I think we have a pretty clear idea where we're gonna go with this.
I think
I
the
wish
big
I had
thing,
a clear idea of where it would go if we put a lot of effort into it, how it will be taken by the select board, and wish they're gonna be willing to do anything with it. But I guess we'll have to do our end up and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm. And run it by the town's attorney and get it up to snuff that way, and then present it to the select board. Jerry,
I'm good.
Dana?
In reviewing the PDF that you sent out, or Bill sent out, are we focusing our attention on specific aspects of that? Or are we looking to try to adopt all of the requirements within this 86-page construction ordinance?
No, it was just sent out. It's like, there might be some ideas in here. There may not.
Well, the one that I flagged is what you were talking about, which is construction permits. Is that or driveway permits? Is that the only thing that we're looking at in terms of what we're trying to recommend? Because I think that I share Andy's question about the focus. I thought originally it was going to be a little bit more channeled towards specific construction projects. And when I saw this, I was wondering whether we were opening it up to just about anything under the sun.
Yeah, it's a good question. And that's up to the committee to come back to us and say, we want to stick with the original, just new construction. Or, another option, and perhaps using this as an example, would be maybe we can roll in some of the other ordinances, maybe organize things that the town already has for ordinances and put them in one. That may or may not work. Or even be desirable. It may be too long. It's just looking at the Bennington ordinance page on their website. It's really well organized. And whether we combine ordinances or not, I think there's some things from that page that can help townspeople figure out, the different ordinances that we have.
For the water and sewer part, I think that we have to comply with the city of Rutland standards for the most part. I think that's what the town uses. Is that right, Bill? We're using the
I think so.
cities?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, when, we're talking like new installations and meters, stuff like that, that's all gonna be done by the city.
So it's not so much the topics that are in that Bennington ordinance as how they treated those topics. So for what it's worth, thank you for this discussion this evening, and hopefully this has been some help to the committee as you move forward. Anything else on this? And if anyone else runs across other ordinances out there, let me know. We'll take a look at those as well.
But this is within the scope of construction
Yes.
solely.
Right, unless the committee wants to do something different.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on. So we'll skip over the energy plan because Mary Ashcroft's going to be joining us hopefully around 7:15. And we can move down to the select board meeting. There were all new committee assignments made the other night. And so Mary is the energy committee now for the select board. Most of the committees, if not all of them, have just one select board member.
I was on a committee. Sorry.
Other people can, staff people, department heads can join the discussions. And other select board members can join the meetings and discussions. It will be the one person that is the chair will be reporting out, as I understand it. So one thing I didn't do at the beginning of the meeting is to figure out who is a regular tonight and who is an alternate. And it looks like, welcome, Jim. It looks like you are still an alternate this evening, and we've got 7 other members, including Norm, who will be voting members this evening. I counted that right. Okay. Also, it was brought up at the select board meeting the other night that that they're looking for, they're looking to fill the regional planning commission rep positions. There's the regular one and there's an alternate. And Jim Hall is going to be the regular representative to the Rutland Regional Planning Commission. And they were wondering if there was anyone on this planning commission who would like to be the alternate. The meetings are basically once a month. I say basically because there's not 12 meetings a year. There's more like 8 or 9. They take the summer off and they don't usually meet in December. And so it's the third Tuesday of those months that they meet. And then there's committee meetings before the regular meeting at 7. So the committees usually meet at 6. You pick one committee to belong to. So select board is wondering if there are any takers for that alternate position. And thank you, Jim, for being the regular member.
Did you say third Tuesday?
Third Tuesday. Okay. Let me know if anyone reconsiders.
When do those positions take effect?
I think immediately.
Yeah, they're like July 1st. We don't have anybody, so they take effect immediately.
So they've both been vacant for a while?
Oh, yeah.
Over 18 months.
18 months? Wow.
Sherman, you don't want to do a do-over?
No, thank you.
He was a regular one a few years back. Okay, just let me know if anyone is interested. I can ask Mary Beth Poley too, if she would like that. So let's move down to, that's all I really had from the select board meeting. A long meeting, but I think that's about it to report out. I did do a presentation of the pocket park for them. So we can move down to that. So I showed them the 16 suggestions that have come out of the public meeting and the 2 stakeholder groups and from the planning commission. This group was the first one to start putting things down for ideas. And we went over, that there's a survey that's been done. And somehow I lost my screen. And when I was checking around recently about the state right of ways and, where signs could go and what permits would be needed, came across a kind of a surprise there. And it was a surprise to VTrans too, that the state right of way is a little crazy in that area. And Bill, my screen just went to the insignia, this Rutland Town symbol. What's that?
Is it Zoom over there? Oh,
There we go. Okay, that should pop up. Let me share my screen here and the files are not coming up. Bear with me. Okay, Bill, so I'm trying to get the thumb drive here. So it's only allowing me the screen, the whiteboard, and an iPhone.
Share.
Should I?
Try your screen. But that's not what you want. So go down here. I'm just curious. That's interesting. Where's the navigator or the file? Yeah, I know, but you usually get a folder that says files. I don't see that.
Documents.
Oh, okay. No,
This?
well, no, the other one, the folder. There you go.
Oh, yeah, that is it.
Yep. There you
Yeah, they're all right. Well, here.
go. So those are recent files. So go to your, that's your flash drive.
Here
Now
we
you
go.
should be able to find
Yeah.
pocket full.
Okay. All right, there it is. So what we have here with the blue lines are the state right of ways in the vicinity of the Pocket Park. And so they're really big and wide around Business Route 4. And it's not only that, there's not only this one right here, which includes part of the parcel for the Pocket Park. But if you go along Simons Avenue, which is a town road, there is the state right of way. It's the wideness of it varies and it stops all of a sudden. And then where the old Route 4 was, it's kind of an extension of Simons Avenue and over the river.
The bridge there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a state right of way. Everything in these blue lines. So that was a total surprise that they extended as much as they did. So this week, Howard went with me. We went and sat down with V-Trans and looked at these maps. We also looked at what we have for the 16 ideas. And they recognize that these are highly unusual rights of way.
Are some of those just historical and no longer applicable?
Could be. Especially the old Route 4 one.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. in particular.
Mhm. Still doesn't quite explain Simon's Avenue. And so like the north parking lot is in the state right away. Looks like we can squeeze in extra spots in the south parking lot because the right of way line just stops. So they're looking into this and they're going to get back to us about what they think about those lines and what kind of permitting we might need.
Well, doesn't that state right of way also, if you read it strictly by where it runs, chop off a lot of the parking lot around Johnson Energy?
Those lines are not, they seem to be shifted a little bit. Yeah, it would be. It would take them.
Yeah, take out their entire parking lot,
Yeah.
which I can't imagine is what the intent is.
They were confused. The state folks, they were very confused. They said they're going to go to the right of way department and take a look at this
Because they may
it
be,
doesn't make sense.
they may be vestiges of old right of ways that are no longer applicable, in which case they could what, return the right of way or decline the right of way or rescind the right of way or
Probably at the most say no permits required because, you know,
Yeah.
that's town land.
Right.
Or something like that.
I mean, it seems like it's a vestige from an older time when Route 4 was not in the location it's in now, but I don't know.
Even these up here,
They're
I mean,
strange.
these are just strange polygons.
Yep.
And then
Because
it extends up Dewey Avenue all the way to the,
Yeah.
that's kind of weird too, isn't it? Or was that part?
But they might have done some of that, that was in the, I guess, 1950s when they put that road in the bridge. And around the bridge abutments, they needed a lot of area to do what they had to do. And that's probably why those right of ways go way out around
Oh, I guess that's Route 4.
like they do.
Uh-huh.
Because they needed room to work for sure with putting that bridge in. That would be my guess.
So yeah, and I'm also checking, just double checking with the railroad to see what their right of way might be. Are there any surprises there? I don't think that'll have much impact on our stuff. But the state right of way will. Best case scenario, they say, don't worry about Simon's Avenue and don't worry about the old Route 4. We might have to, this might remain, or at least a portion of this. So anything we do with bringing the watering trough over or adding a new sign, a new like Pocket Park sign, we would need to go through them, get permits. And if there's a need for traffic control, they would need to set that up. And that's if equipment was actually in Business Route 4. I'm
I
not,
mean, if equipment were in.
if
business, which-
if there was, if we had to, dig some holes, needed,
I see.
The traffic control they talked about was to move the monument. To move the
And
monument,
that.
we would have to have a traffic plan that they would have to approve. Move the monument.
During the time it takes to move it from one location,
Exactly.
the less than quarter of a mile
Yeah.
down the
Yeah.
road, yeah.
But they were very supportive of it. They liked what they saw.
Great.
yeah, and they got it. They got, they understand the falls and the draw there. They understand the link to Business Route 4 and maybe economic development. So we're hoping for the best with them. It's
Barb,
yeah.
when I was on the select board way back I came on in 2007. there was talk at that time, and the state was promoting that the railroad, with the help from the state of Vermont, was going to put a Y in over there in this neighborhood. And I'm not sure how far back these rights of way go, but I'm guessing if they go back further than 2007, it probably related to the old Clarendon and Pittsford rail system that went through there. That's my
Can
guess.
you, yeah, that's interesting. Can you see this, Jim?
Yes.
Okay.
So
you think-
it is a strange layout, that's for sure. But in all my years in other towns and dealing with railroads, it's not uncommon to find some things that apparently they were trying to plan for in the future, and they just never bothered to undo it or whatever, and it carried forward for all these years. And that may be one of the things that's happened here. Clarendon and Pittsford Railroad is to go right through that area.
Right through, what
through
about the
the-
Simons Avenue?
Yes, there's a concrete foundation there still that shows where the elevated rail went, and in order to connect with the other rail line that comes from West Rutland.
Is that the one on the map that we can see on the bottom of the map?
Yes.
Because there are two rail lines on
Th-
there, one that
it says
runs towards
Clarendon and
Proctor and the
Pittsburgh.
other one runs towards West
Yeah.
Rutland.
Yeah, this is the existing one.
Right. The old Clarendon and Pittsford line used to cross Route 4, believe it or not.
There's one that's there.
And went all the way up to Florence.
Oh,
And it was actually owned by the Vermont Marble Company. And they brought marble and whatever else that they were shipping into Center Rutland from that line. And it since has been all torn up.
what's the line that runs north towards Proctor?
It's the
That's
Pittsford something, isn't it?
no, that's Vermont
That's
Rail
the one he's
System.
talking about, isn't it?
Yeah.
I
That's
thought there was
Clarendon.
another one that went to Pittsford.
If you go up the West Proctor Road, I think, can't you see the old base from the
Yes,
old
right
Clarendon?
up to
Pittsburgh?
West Proctor Road.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see the
And
where it used
that
to run
was,
along kind of Otter Creek.
that was the original Clarendon and Pittsford. And
Right behind the
then
fire station.
somehow or other, Vermont Rail Systems ended up with that name in the purchase of the business when the old Rutland Railroad went bankrupt.
That's interesting, Jim. What is do you have any experience with these, outdated rights of way like that, and how future uses get
No,
around those?
No, somewhere in the work that went in to the lead up to this, what we're seeing on the ground there now, there should be a planning document that justifies why they were putting this into place, because it is so unusual. But whether or not it ever was filed, it's anybody's guess. I mean, it would take a tremendous amount of research if it's as old as I think it might be to even find it, if there is one.
Yeah, Howard.
I think that Omea,
But my guess is that it was all, of course, the railroads and the state of Vermont have always been fairly congenial when it comes to this kind of thing. And state pretty much gave them everything they asked for over the years. And I'm guessing that's probably what happened here.
Yeah, Howard.
but Omea owns that, and right behind the fire station, there was a rail track that went right behind the fire station, and Omea turned that over to the town back when the fire station got built. Just, the most recent fire station. So the Omea did own a piece there of the rail, and it turned it over to the town.
Yeah, Byron a while ago told me, there was behind there, he said that was town land where it's, and that's what you mean, Howard, right? That treed area.
On that sharp corner of Simon's Ave, there's two like marble bridge piers from where the rail line went across the road, and that's town land. Like we own the north side of that right away now.
So we talked to the V-Trans people, and they gave me some contacts at AOT for railroad right of ways. And so I've reached out to those people as well. I have a feeling that those two groups might be talking to one another, or if they're not, they probably should, to kind of help figure this out. Again, it's not a deal breaker that they'll work with us. It just would be a whole lot easier if we didn't have to get permits along Simons Avenue. They would be one-time permits, but still. So yeah, that was a little bit of a surprise, just thinking, just going to have a simple conversation about moving signs and that sort of thing. And they called up on the person I was talking to, Brian Sanderson, calls up this data on his computer and goes, whoa, you might want to see this.
If you can find out in talking with those people at some point what the dates were when these things were put in place, that would be that would probably answer some question.
The other thing, Barbara, is that if he has copies of the easements themselves, that would be very useful, because they may be limited to certain things that are, as Howard suggested, are now expired.
Mhm.
And conceivably, the easements would be released by their own terms, but the careful title lawyers might want a quick claim deed or a release or something like that.
What kind of easement expires?
Well, it could be for a certain period of time. For instance, if it was for construction, parking, like Howard suggested, or where they loaded materials and kept them, it would be a limited easement of some form. It's just a thought, but
Mm-hmm.
we ought to, if they exist and have not been released, we ought to have copies of them so we know what we're dealing with.
There was a mention after the board meeting, there was a little discussion about that said, they're talking that those rights of way may exist to the south, because if they ever need to replace the bridge, it gives them sufficient area to put a temporary bridge in and not worry about it. They already have it. So there was a discussion about that may be part of that reasoning as well.
Or to the north, right? They could maybe go whatever side was made sense. Now that makes sense.
You're talking about the two blocky areas,
Yeah,
not all the way down
Right
to the
on
old
either side,
highway.
on either side of Business Route 4
Bridge,
Mhm.
yeah,
bridge,
that goes
those
over the
rights of
creek.
way are almost perfectly sized to build a road around the existing bridge. So they
Right.
can replace
So they could replace it. Yeah,
Mhm.
makes
Yeah,
a lot of
that's-
sense.
That does make a lot of sense.
fortunately.
But all that means is that they would commandeer that space for the time that it took to actually construct the temporary bridge and do the other bridge renovations. And that would mean moving signs and other things, but I mean, that's what you'd have to do if there were any project going on,
Right.
so. It
That's
doesn't
true.
mean that we can't do
That's
work in
true.
that area, right?
Just have to get a permit, right? You thought possibly, if they exist.
Is that a cumbersome process, Barb?
It didn't sound like it.
Okay.
And it sounded like they would work with us on it and make it as simple as possible. But you know, in the one northern area there that has that block of right of way, that's where we have a parking, 4 parking spaces.
Yep.
We have the end of the trail that starts or, goes to the south end, and we've got a spur trail, and the boat launch is all in that.
And the monument probably too, that you want to move down.
That
The boat launch, it's not that far. It's not that far north, is it? That boat launch would be
Right
in
about
that-
on the edge of it.
down in that
It's right
lower-
about where
lower
the,
corner.
right.
yeah,
where the
you can
lower-
check
on the
on
right-hand
that
side?
board over there.
Barbara, can you show the area with your arrow where the boat launch would be relative to the two
Well,
larger?
okay, can you see the arrow, the
Yeah.
little pointer? So the parking lot would be
Right.
right around here. And then the one trail going to the south end, and then there would be a spur. I think it's within this.
Yep. I'm sure it is based on what Mary Beth had originally.
Yeah,
talked
and
to us about.
if I
But the
remember,
boat launch, where do you think that is with respect to the,
It's almost all the way down, but to the south.
that's what I thought. I didn't think it was going to be in that area.
It's damn close to in that area, right about where it was her.
well,
arrow.
the recreational people
Yeah.
said it would be a whole lot easier to do a portage from the north end and just go down here. It's because it's pretty steep down at the south. So the boat launch is now up here.
Oh, okay.
But I still think, Barbara, it's not quite as close to the bridge as you think.
That's what
I
I
think
was
it's a
wondering.
little bit
Really
further
steep right
south.
If anyone wants, it's on that map there. They're both the right of ways and all of the,
Yeah, I guess I've missed a meeting or two because
Probably back more where the blue lines are, where that blue line goes in.
It's right in about where your arrow is right now, a
Yeah,
little
right.
bit to the
I say
north.
it's closer to there, yeah.
that's the south list. The north list is up above.
but the boat launches.
I think it's number 3.
It is 4. Yeah, it's in
Oh.
that.
Yeah, it is within that. You know what? It's right where the river makes a little bit of a hitch there.
Right there. with
Yeah,
your
yeah.
arrow.
I guess you're right. A little bit further north, right in there. You're right.
Yeah, they actually wanted it under the bridge, but
Oh,
it's like,
geez.
no way.
Yeah.
We're never going to get permission for that.
Yeah, okay. I guess I somehow thought the boat launch was down.
I agree. I did
And-
too, Dana.
And another reason, well,
I did
another
too.
reason we separated it from the south end was because there's so much other public stuff
Right,
going on in the south end, the
down here.
picnic area, the overlook. And the north end would be the boat people, so to speak. I mean, all this can change. I mean, we can go to the select board and say, oh, we think maybe it would go better down the south end, but
I think that north end makes all the sense. It's just away from the little bit rougher water too.
and it's a bit
Starts
of
to
a
smooth out.
bargaining chip now with the
Yeah,
state. too.
yeah. It's interesting. Anyway,
Yeah. The orange lines are the parcel lines.
Yeah, they're
Parcel
just
line,
generic parcel line.
And this is just their right of way.
Yes.
within those parcels.
Yes, right. But they're just, yeah, some of them overlap and some of them are.
Right, which is another unusual.
My guess is that this is just because there was a road there. And I think those are antiquated, historical, but no longer functional. This right of way along the road that is no longer a
Right,
road.
yeah, it's, right, that was where Route 4 went all the way through, like.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's no longer a
They carved
bridge.
the whole no, oh, yeah.
Right.
We have a bridge put there.
Yeah, we did, briefly, but it wasn't long enough, right?
No, it's not long enough. Definitely.
Okay.
You do have Mary on the meeting.
Oh, we got Mary. Great. So anything else on this? Keep your fingers crossed then.
So what is the next step, Barbara? Is it just to explore the need for the permit, or to start the permitting process, or get more information from V-Trans and
Get more information.
V-Trans right now.
Get more information and, you know, the select board is waiting to hear about that, the right of way situation. And after that, they should be in a position to start making some, you know, decisions about what to go forward with.
Okay.
And I'm sorry to join late, folks. Can I ask a question? Howard and Barbara met with the state folks. The state is claiming a state right-of-way over town roads.
Yeah, these, can you see the map that's up, Mary?
I can, yeah.
So everything within the blue lines, the state says it's their right of way.
No.
And
What
this
did
is
Howard
from
say
the-
about this?
Well, the state questions it too, Mary. They were
Okay,
very surprised to see this, and they're looking into it. They're
Okay.
digging into it because they questioned it themselves. Doesn't make any sense.
it doesn't, no.
It doesn't, no.
Okay.
But,
I hate to have to go to war with the state, but you know, that's ours.
I don't think I don't think it'll come to that.
Okay,
However, Jim did bring up a good point a few minutes ago that these might be remnants of railroad right of ways. And so that might be a little bit different story.
Maybe not, but that's, I understand the reasoning. Yeah.
So, yeah, I've also reached out to the folks at AOT that have expertise in railroad right of ways and awaiting their response
Okay, great.
on that topic.
A good resource on railroad stuff is former Fire Chief Frankie Chaffee.
Okay. Okay. Everybody ready to move on?
Mhm.
Okay. Let me stop sharing this. Get everybody. It's just not liking me today. Can you stop sharing?
Hit escape. You might be able to stop sharing it.
Okay, there's everybody. So thank you, Mary, for joining us. The next thing on the agenda is the work that our Energy Committee came up with to pull together a survey we'd like to present to town residents. This is to give us some direction for the many suggestions that were made in the enhanced energy plan and get some priorities from townspeople. You know, we've got like 22 questions in this survey. Most of them pertain to, would you like to see a presentation or a workshop on this? Some are more general questions like, do you have an electric vehicle? Do you see a need for more charging stations in the town of Rutland? Things like that. And Norm and Sherman were part of this committee putting this together, and we're just hoping to get it out there and get some feedback. Norm and Sherman, do you want to add anything to that?
I don't have anything to add. Well, I shouldn't say that. The only thing I would say is that this was I don't want to say a first draft, but it was not necessarily the final draft, but more than anything else to give us an idea, to give an idea of how we would approach this. And here are the questions we would ask, or some of them, and some may be redundant. So we'd have to do a little finer tuning of it, I think, if we decided to use it.
I don't have anything to say. I do
Okay.
agree with Sherman. You know, we probably want to put it under a little stronger microscope.
And I think our thinking was we would do that with the select board committee.
Mhm.
Well, the select board committee is with us, right?
Yes,
One person, yep.
there it is right there in that one box.
There you go.
I have a suggestion, if I may.
Sure.
Mary, I assume you haven't seen the survey or the draft.
That's correct.
Why don't we, Barbara, why don't you ship it over to her? Let her look at it, and then she can tell you what she feels, and based on that, we can decide perhaps how much more attention we need to give it before we send it out, and before we determine how we're going to send it out, because we didn't spend a lot of time on it. We floated some ideas,
Talking about the survey, right? That's all.
Yeah.
and then maybe Mary will have some ideas that we didn't think about.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. Thanks.
I can put it up on the screen, but it is 22 questions. It
Yeah.
probably would be easier just to send it to you.
Mhm.
There was one in there that we definitely think needs to come out, and that was are you interested in supporting an energy club at the Rutland school, the town school? And we didn't know if we were stepping on toes with that question or not. I mean, it could be a legitimate question in a survey. We probably should run it by the school officials.
I think we shouldn't put it in. I don't recall much discussion about it, and it may have been my idea. But I don't think we send that to the public. I don't think the school board or the administration at the school, from what I remember from serving on the school board, ask the public those kinds of questions. If they want to do it, they do it. We think, I mean, Barbara and I have talked about it for a year or so, and thought it was something that the school board and the administration of schools ought to think about, is to get kids involved in this at an early age would be a good idea. But I think it ought to come out. I don't.
Can we, why don't we back off and not try to make any decision on what to do until Mary's seen it?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then we can discuss it, and the Energy Club could be a separate, not necessarily part of this, a separate approach, because I do agree that we need to do some groundwork just to see if it's acceptable to whoever makes those decisions at the school.
Can I ask two questions? Let me
Is that
start.
one?
Okay, I'll start with one. What's the purpose of this survey? What do you hope to do with the information you're gathering?
Some of it is general in nature, more opinions than anything else. Most of it, though, is right out of the enhanced energy plan. And there's like 4 pages of actions the town could take to, to reduce energy, to use more renewable energy, and so forth. So most of the questions are directed at that, trying to get some sense from the town what they consider most important. What are the priorities, the first things we should do as a town?
And in addition to that, it's as an energy committee, we would be in a position to provide information to the townspeople that they don't necessarily have now. So it is not just that, but it's to give them at least a means to get information if they're interested in it.
Okay.
Mary, can I speak for a second? Mary, if you remember, the purpose of the enhanced energy plan was that with an enhanced energy plan, a town got substantial deference and at hearings before the Public Service Commission, now the Public Service Board. And so we dutifully came up with we redid the energy plan and included this enhanced section, edited recommendations, et cetera. And, they're listed there and some of them are complicated. But the thought was, if we were going to move forward with the enhanced energy plan, if it wasn't just for the purpose of getting a substantial deference in those hearings, then we ought to get some direction of some sense of how the town felt about these various subjects. So whatever we did was more likely than not to be in line with the public's desires.
And they were put together to go with the rest of the plan, which is the movement toward, total renewables by 2050 or 90% by 2050. So it was all part of, what the town could do to make all that possible and continue on that path.
Okay.
Dana, did you have a comment or question? Get your hand up.
I was simply going to add that I think that part of the enhanced energy plan was to create awareness of ways that the entire population of the town could help make decisions regarding how they could contribute to reducing need for non-renewables. And I think that's how you could address the curriculum piece with the school, outreach to the school for involvement. But I think I agree with Norman that question is really not appropriate if it's not within the jurisdiction of the select board or the planning commission to do that. So it's more of a coordination piece. But I think from a public awareness perspective, both the questions as well as the general awareness, I think, is something that can be a unifying approach to making progress towards attaining renewable goals.
Yeah, all that. I mean, we don't have to do a survey. I mean, if you want the planning commission to pick what we think are the priorities and, the workshops or the demonstrations that we think the town would like to see most, we can do that. we thought a survey would be a much better way of reaching out and maybe getting some more buy-in than we would if it came just from the planning commission.
No, I agree. I mean, I like the idea of the survey very much. And the fact that you're tying it into the enhanced energy plan that we did makes perfect sense to me. I would also love to see, the junior high science teachers take the survey into their classrooms and get input from the students, because I think that this is often the younger generation's issue. So I think that would be it. So with Sherman's permission, can I ask question number 2?
You have my permission.
Thank you, Sherman. When and this, let me give you a bit of a preamble. We had an we have had a select board energy committee. I think the last time we met was just the year and a half ago up at Northwood, because we were considering hiring or contracting with Green Lantern to put a small solar field on our capped landfill. Green Lantern had run the numbers and they were deciding that, they were doing a lot of these municipal projects around and they were very excited initially. But then they had run the numbers, realized that all of the utilities, the wiring would be underground at Northwood because we don't have overhead transmission lines at Northwood. So Green Lantern had run the numbers and decided they couldn't afford it. And that was the end of the idea. Well, it was the end of the discussion with Green Lantern, I should say. While we were there, we had a representative from Green Mountain Power, and I've forgotten her name. Bill might remember, or we might be able to dig it out of the minutes. But she made the very valid point that the town may be better off looking at town buildings and facilities and seeing which might be able to support rooftop solar arrays, because there could be some considerable savings on a building by building approach that way. We didn't get any further than that. I think that was the last meeting of the Energy Committee, which is too bad, but here I am as the new Energy Committee. And I'd really like to, so that leads to my question, Sherman. I know you were wondering if there was one in there. The question is whether the questionnaire that you have coming out is asking for any input about where the town could, so should the town or could the town site solar arrays for future and maybe not so future development.
Not a general location, but town building specific, right, Mary?
Not necessarily. I was just wondering if you had any question like that on the questionnaire.
There is.
No, I don't think there is currently.
No. But we
It
can
makes-
add it.
That makes sense to me.
I mean,
think
the
part-
thing
I
that has
think part
popped
of
into
it-
my. Go ahead, Norman.
I think part of the idea is to attune the public. I'm sure that, excuse me, I'm sure very few people have read the energy plan or the enhanced energy plan except its authors and maybe one or two members on the select board. So this is, an effort to begin the education process and to get some idea of where to go with this expansive, multifaceted, complicated plan that we put together, in part in direct response to the state. I mean, they set a lot of the requirements of it, and we filled in the gaps, and to get it down, to street level, so we can begin the program, or begin to shape the program to the community's understanding and needs. So, and your suggestion is certainly something we ought to include. I mean, there's all kinds of levels of involvement from the town per se, all the way down to individual homes and community solar systems and all that kind of thing. So, this will give us at least some direction, in my view, of where to begin.
Dana?
I mean, my thought was, are we planning to put solar panels on the new municipal building planned for McKinley Avenue? Because that would be an easy place to start making strides towards renewables. We at the school in Middlebury just passed a bond for 8 million. And part of that is to put on a solar array that would offset our entire electric bill. So, I mean, those types of things over time would result in a considerable savings and also the contribution to the environmental sustainability of our work.
Yeah, I'm not sure it was part of the design, right, Mary? But
No, I'm not sure. I'm sure.
It was a schematic, so we haven't really gone to heavy duty design yet, but no, I don't remember that it was. I will say when we built the town highway garage, we went out to bid for alternative bids, and the alternative was to put solar panels on the roof so that we could do exactly what Dana is suggesting. We couldn't get anybody to bid on it. That may have been at a time when, that was what, 7 years ago. So maybe the tax credits weren't aligned, or maybe the incentives weren't great enough. I don't know, but we couldn't get anyone to bid for the solar array. So we just went with a standard building.
But if we purchased the solar array and just had somebody install it, then we would get the credits, we would get all of the energy produced, and it wouldn't be an issue. All we're doing is asking for somebody to be the supplier and the installer. And from what I understand, that's not a terribly complex task. You just need to make sure that your building is sound. And when you're doing new construction, it's pretty simple to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I agree. I think we would have to make sure the specs on the roof were such that we could control, we could put panels up in the future. Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not sure of the alignment either. The roof, I would have to take a look at it. I'm not sure if it's north-south.
Yeah.
it's not a flat roof, is it?
We need to at least have someone who knows what they're doing, look at the roofs to see if it's beneficial to, from a cost perspective for us to do that.
I mean, there are a number of providers that we could bring in to give us an estimate of what that would be.
And not to get sidetracked too much on the new public safety building, but what are the next steps, Mary, as far as you know?
Well, I did see a memo that came around to the select board saying that we weren't going to be going out to bid on that until January of 2023. So we didn't hear any report at the select board meeting as to why we were waiting so long. I think it might be the architect just didn't have the bandwidth to, get the things together and get it done before then. So we didn't have a discussion about it, and maybe we can learn more at our next meeting.
Yeah. And sounds like we have time to bring up some of these other.
Yeah, and I will say we've the town's building committee, which primarily looks at uses in town hall. When I was on it with Joe DiNardo, we moved to some energy saving lighting in the hallway in the new town clerk's office, some heat pumps in the town clerk's office. So there were something we were conscious of that as we were redoing and remodeling some of the spaces there. But you've got to move the stuff always to the forefront. So I'm glad you folks are working on that. And I think that I'll certainly do what I can to promote it within the board, the select board. And if we get citizens behind us responding to the questionnaire, I think that will make everyone's work a little easier.
Yeah. So I can get you a copy of the survey. And what do you think? Would you like to meet with this small committee after that and work on the language and the choice of questions and?
That's
like?
Norman and Sherman.
And yeah, and myself.
Barbara.
Oh, okay. No, I'd be happy to if they'd be willing to. That would be fine.
Sherman and I may be intimidated by the team.
As well, you should be.
Yeah, yes. As well, I know.
Okay. Any other questions for us, Mary?
No, just, and I'll go back to, I have a long-standing appreciation of the work the Planning Commission does. So anything else I can do as a select board member to move your ideas and projects forward, let me know. I'd be happy to try my best, to promote some of the projects you're working on.
Well,
Thank you.
hopefully, excuse me, the idea is that the feedback we get will kind of consolidate that for us, and then we'll give you a job list.
Yeah.
I know that this might be a little bit more forward thinking than where we're at right now, but has there been discussion about the type of methodology for collecting the feedback? Would we be looking at an online form that would be linked to the website and then directing people there to collect it? Great.
Yeah, or going directly to the survey, depending on the service we use, the app we use.
Yeah.
And, that way it can get, instantly tabulated and,
Well, you can do that with a Google form. Reason I was asking is I might volunteer if it happens after July 1, because I'm officially retiring from education as of June 30th. So I might have a little bit extra time on my hands.
Oh, wow, that's big news. Congratulations.
Full retirement, and don't have to
Wow.
worry about all of the projected changes and things like that. So
Well, I'm sure we can find ways to keep you busy.
I'm sure you could. I'm almost regretting the fact that I just made that
Board
announcement.
of Commissioners spot open, isn't there?
I brought it up already. There was a pregnant pause for,
I was here. I was just being quiet. That's why I asked. I was the one who asked the question about when that term came open. Yeah.
it is an alternate. So,
As of July 1st, maybe I'll consider things.
Oh, wow.
well, thank you, Mary.
Thank you, folks. Always an ongoing for all of the hard work you put into this. I was on the Planning Commission years ago, and I know how much time goes into it. So thank you all for your efforts. They are much appreciated.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Oh, Dana, that's great news.
I think so. 2 grandchildren, a wedding coming up, an engagement that has just been announced, and my other son is probably going to get engaged in the next 6 months.
You
So
couldn't work if you wanted to.
I'd be taking time off. And so figured, you know what? I've been in this retirement system long enough, and you don't get any more benefits by prolonging. So I figured, why not?
I assume you'll have time to bike 5 or 6 times a week, 5 or 6 times a week, so you can whip me into condition.
I'm happy to whip you into condition there, Norman.
I
I haven't been on a bike.
think
though in
whipping
6
is
months.
the appropriate term based on last year, but anyway.
I like Sherman's response that it doesn't like to bike if it's over 10 miles an hour wind. And it seems like, Norman, whenever you and I bike, somehow I say it's you, you tell me it's me, that the wind factor is usually like 12 to 15 miles an hour and I can barely catch my breath.
When we bike down past Mary Ashcroft's house into the open fields, going whichever way we go, the wind is in our face.
Yeah,
And
face, yeah.
I think
Haven't figured that one out
basically,
yet.
I think Mary has something to do with that.
Okay.
Okay, well, she's not online to be
To defend
offended,
herself.
be offended or defend herself.
There you go.
Okay, so we're down to announcements in the agenda and okay, we just had a big one.
Yes.
Any others? For the group? Okay, let's close out with approving the minutes from March 10th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Discussion.
I did not see any typos.
Oh,
You better move that question then, Barbara, really quick before
Oh.
something else pops up.
He's looking though, so we got,
Yeah, okay. Any other discussion? There's no typos, so what else is there to discuss? Probably nada. Are we ready for the question?
Yes.
All those in favor of approving the minutes as is, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Okay,
I'll abstain, Barbara, because I only came in at the
I'm
tail
gonna
end of that
abstain.
meeting.
okay.
I don't have any objection.
Okay, anything else?
When's the next meeting date?
21st.
3 weeks.
That's right. Yeah, I will not be here.
Okay, no more. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, we are adjourned.